Hello, so today I quickly wanted to talk about the 2002 independent horror film Dog Soldiers. So of course the film follows a group of men. I guess you could say they're on a routine military exercise, and obviously they just kind of stumble into something they really didn't bargain for. So I'd say overall, for the most part, yes, it's a very entertaining film, very well written as far as dialogue, acting, everything's great. For the Blu-ray version, which was released by Scream Factory, I do have just one minor complaint. The picture does look great, but even in the daylight scenes, you still have a bit of graininess. So I don't know if it's just because the filmmakers had made the movie this way, or if they just really weren't able to clean that up. In the darker scenes, it's less noticeable, but it is there throughout the film. So I don't know. That's pretty much the only, I guess the only complaint I had on this is just the bit of graininess going on. But once again, I just don't know if it was intentional or otherwise. As far as the story itself, it feels like there's a bit of unnecessary filler at the beginning of the movie. We open up with a man and a woman. They're out camping. They get attacked by the creature, and honestly, in my opinion, because we're going into this knowing it's a werewolf film, it's not necessary to have that set up in order to let us know what to expect, because we pretty much have the built-in audience expecting a werewolf film, so they pretty much do know what to expect on their own. From there, we have a scenario that skips to a scene that occurs 2 hours before the camper attack. So it's basically, I guess, just someone who's not able to perform as they're being asked to, because the commanding officer is asking one of his men to kill a dog just because. So in a sense, that kind of gives you a feel of what type of a character or person that we're dealing with in this movie, but once again, I don't feel it's necessary, because from there we actually do progress forward. We go into the actual mission, so right there from that point on, we would have discovered what type of people we're dealing with. So in my opinion, it just feels more like the first 7 to 8 minutes of the film are pretty much filler before we get into the actual story itself. So of course we have this group of men. They've set up camp, and in the middle of their, I guess you could say, their bonding scene or just story swapping, there's a random creature that's just thrown pretty much in the middle of their fire circle. It's been gutted, it's been mutilated, but I don't know if that was just done kind of like as a warning, or just kind of like the creature itself, the werewolves, if they're just kind of pretty much saying you're next. But that does set up the gore element for this film, and it definitely gets things moving into motion. The following day, which I thought was very interesting, is we actually have werewolf daylight attacks. So it's not necessarily that the film waited until evening or nightfall. We have some daylight attacks that take us into the evening. It kind of makes me question, like, is it the fact that they're just kind of like werewolves the entire period that the full moon is going on? Or do they not like the traditional werewolf where they only transform each time the moon comes up and they just revert back to human during daylight? But that kind of was an interesting little sequence or add-in right there. But yes, I did think that was interesting that we did move into this, and we did have just straight-on daylight attacks. But it doesn't really hurt the film. It keeps the action moving, it pushes the story, and it gets us to the cottage where the real meat of the story is actually going to be occurring. So the woman that they're taking shelter with, her name is Megan, and she definitely does have a very distrustful nature. She constantly says that she's not to be trusted, that she's a jerk, all this other stuff. But we really do kind of progress a bit into the film before we discover what kind of a person she really is. And by this point in time, we have lost numerous persons throughout the course of the story. I think one of the funnier scenes was when her sheepdog was trying to pull the innards out of a man that had already been gutted, and she's kind of trying to shoo the dog away from there. I don't know if that was just intended humor, but it definitely came off as funny to me. There was definitely a quieter moment in the film where Megan sits down at the piano. She's playing this very lovely song, Clair de Lune, I believe it was. And it's just a very nice, relaxing moment in the film. To a degree, it kind of gives a sense of hope that maybe they're going to make it out alive. Roughly translated, the title of the song means moonbeam. So that in itself, I don't know if that was just kind of like a reference to An American Werewolf in London, where the majority of the songs used in the soundtrack were also song titles with the word moon in them. But as I've said, it's definitely a film that the action stays up, it keeps your interest. That's one of the lower, or actually one of the slower points within the film, and it pretty much just picks right back up again where the action left off. And then of course we do discover the secret that Megan has been hiding, various secrets actually. But I won't go any further from there. I don't want to ruin the story. If any of you haven't seen it, I'll leave that for you to discover. One of the things that I found interesting here is that actor Simon Pegg had been offered a role in this film, and I believe it was due to director Edgar Wright's offer to hold his first horror film role for Shaun of the Dead. I think that was pretty much the only reason he turned this down. So it was kind of roughly, I guess you could say, 2-year wait. Dog Soldiers was released in 2002, and then of course we got Shaun of the Dead back in 2004. But I don't know, I just kind of found that a little bit interesting. There is also very minimal CGI used throughout the course of the film. They primarily went with practical effects, such as the animatronic, or just kind of like the man in the jumpsuit, but this was also just done because the filmmakers felt that the audience would be distracted by the CG rather than actually following or paying attention to the story, which I think was actually a very good choice. Even though CG is definitely a lot bigger now, it's pretty much everywhere, it's more widely used than it was in the beginning, but I think there are still a few people who appreciate the use of practical effects over the computer-generated graphics. But, you know, that's my opinion. I know there are several people that do feel that way, but I do love that they went that route as far as minimal on the computer-aided special effects there. Oddly enough, actor Jason Statham had also been set to play the role of Cooper in this film. Ultimately, he turned it down to play a part in John Carpenter's The Ghost of Mars, but I don't know, I think that kind of would have been a cool choice if he had been in this film, although in my mind I've kind of got the whole mindset that I'm used to seeing him as an action star, even though yes, this is a very action-y based film itself, as well as Ghost of Mars did have a bit of action as well, but I don't know, I kind of thought that was interesting once I stumbled across that bit of information. Of course, we also have actor Sean Pertwee's character, who was Sergeant Harry G. Wells, and this was obviously, I guess you could say, a namesake to the writer-director Neil Marshall's favorite writer, H.G. Wells. And then there, of course, is a reference later on in the film where they kind of make reference to the time machine back when they're discussing keeping time, and you know, it's just kind of a very subtle reference, I think, but I thought that was very interesting and unique in itself as well. And then, of course, one of the more obvious things about the film is, of course, we have 5 wolves on the cover of the film. There actually are, with the exception of Megan and Ryan, there actually are 5 werewolves within the film, but yeah, I know it was a very quick brush through. I'm pretty sure this is a film that most of you guys have already seen or already very well familiar with. But that is pretty much all I have for you guys today, and I will talk to you later.